So thank you for joining me.
Thank you for
hopefully the connection doesn't cut out too much, but if it does, we can just sort of pause and repeat ourselves. It's not the end of the world. So tell us, you did a master's in communication design here and graduated in 2015. How was your experience?
Exactly, yeah. It was a great year. It was just 1 year full time. And for me, it was like a dream coming true because back in Greece, where I come from, I didn't have the chance to exactly study, exactly what I wanted due to the system there. And, I succeeded in university and I studied civil engineering as a BA. And what I always wanted to do was to study, something related to illustration or communication design. And by the end of my studies, I was looking for master's programs, postgraduate programs, and Norwich was the one that, when I got accepted, it was, that's it. It was a big yes for me. It was a great year because I could actually focus and research, exactly how I wanted to respond to all the tasks. Even having the studio during the last 3 months of my study was incredible for me. It was the first time I actually had a studio to work from and also exchange ideas, because I remember being with two other MA students, but they were doing fine art. So it was a nice exchange of like having our little mini group of for feedback and just bouncing off ideas of each other, and just it was great, absolutely great.
No, good. It sounds really positive. Is that what brought you to Norwich, or were you here already?
That was what brought me to Norwich. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Wonderful. Yeah. Great. So exciting things. I watched your TED talk. That's a lie. I watched it 3 times, actually. So tell me, what was that experience like? Because I can imagine it was really exciting, but quite overwhelming at the same time.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you for watching it more than once. I mean, I don't think I've watched it more than twice, like the whole thing after it happened. It was a great experience. It was really exciting when I got the invitation. And, there was a theme for all the speakers, and the theme was bridging within. But these, of course, it was open to interpretation and to however people wanted to approach it, and to what they had to say, of course, regarding to who they are and what they do. So I was mentored. I had one main mentor, and of course a group of people that would we would join a call every 2 months, I think, in the beginning, and then it was during the last month it was almost weekly, to be honest, just fine-tuning the last bit and making sure I got a good flow, the pictures, how they correspond to the text, and having a talk that is has a nice structure. It addresses specific points and how to get a message across, but also make it engaging. And for me, that was a completely new experience. Public speaking, but also looking at what's behind the scenes and how you can put together. Yeah, so basically, bridging within, my approach was how mural art is actually creating a bridge between myself as an artist and the public space, but also people, and how communities, different people that form a community, are can find some common ground, using street art and mural art as a bridge. That's the general idea.
Yeah, my experience with graffiti, I think I mentioned this in our email exchange, was initially, I mean, obviously it's everywhere, but sort of the really impactful stuff was when I went to Barcelona as a teenager for like it was a sixth form art trip. And I remember just taking lots of photographs of it and bringing it home because my grandmother was from Seville and she
Oh,
was in love with graffiti. She'd always say, you know, why wouldn't you want to paint walls really colourful? Especially in this country,
right.
she was like, it's so grey here. Why wouldn't you want to do that? She also just
Yeah.
thought it was a really nice way of sort of reclaiming spaces as well, especially in Barcelona, where a lot of the buildings were damaged from the war and people started to use that as part of their art. And it just, yeah, it's always really sat with me as quite an interesting thing. I mean, for a sort of 87-year-old woman, she was quite into graffiti, but yeah, that's always been my sort of connection to it. And there's a lot in Norwich as well, isn't there? That's really, really beautiful. And I love seeing it
Yeah.
change. And sort of the other, a few months ago, I saw somebody had used someone else's graffiti to sort of inform theirs. So it sort of connected and became like a collage. It was just really amazing.
Is this at like at a place where people usually go to paint, or was it something more quick? You know, something
It was in a
that you
car
it
park.
was in the street, or was it like an? All right, okay, okay,
Yeah, there's a
yeah.
car park
Normally,
in Anglia Square, and it just every couple of months it
yeah,
just changes, you know. And I walk past there quite often. I really enjoy seeing that, and it
yeah.
does, you know, it
It's
does make a difference to your experience walking around for sure.
of course, yeah. I do remember joining friends and painting at that car park when I was in Norwich. It was one of the spots. Yeah, yeah. I used to paint.
Yeah, it's
Nice
cool.
memories.
So
Yeah.
nice. In your talk, you mentioned that the public tend to be really positive about your work in sort of public spaces, and I just wonder if you could talk a little bit about that and sort of how you found that.
Yeah, yeah, of course. But to be honest, when I mention, you know, people's reactions and how they embrace, you know, this change, and it's not just the, you know, colors. It's also what they see on the wall. And of course, my work is uh, much more abstract. It's not just a portrait of, you know, a woman or something figurative, which is accepted by the vast majority of the public. But people are really open, and I'm talking about different countries as well, to when it comes to something organized, you know, and you see that there is an effort, people joining forces, artists, authorities, NGOs, people that really try to improve things. And of course, after my TED talk, I did have also people messaging me or you know, asking me about the issue of gentrification and how areas are changing, but they're losing
Mm.
their character. Of course, this is very real, and it's true that I did not address that during my talk. I could have had,
Mm.
but it's one of the points that I didn't mention, and it's a really important point. And there are artists that not only do they draw inspiration from events or from historical events or cultural events that are linked to an area and its community, but they also the subjects of their pieces on the walls are actually people that's might actually not get too much attention or nobody knows their story and so on, but there is awareness for all sorts of issues with their work. I know that my work is not so direct when it comes
Mm.
to a message due to its, you know, abstract style and nature. But I'm not the only one. Luckily, I'm not the only one. There are hundreds or thousands of artists out there that are, you know, doing amazing, absolutely amazing. But people, yes, the answer is that people are very positive to interventions like
Mm.
these. Very different to you know, someone just tagging on your wall at night
Yes.
and then you just look at your wall. I mean, I know we always have to kind of like separate these things. Like you can't just call everything graffiti, and you can't just call everything street art. You know, it's we need to define those things, those terms.
Yeah, I suppose from my perspective, it would be about purpose. You know, the why somebody is doing something in a public space like that. And a lot of it is expression. I think everybody's just trying to express themselves in some way, but it's not all about communication. Sometimes it's just about sort of marking that you were in a space to prove that, I was here and I live here and this belongs to us. But then I feel like others want the space to be enjoyed by other people as well. So, they put a little bit more effort in, and it's not so much a protest, it's more of a collaboration for community, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. To me, it does, absolutely. But of course, I cannot, condemn or be against, tagging, for example, because that's how I started as well. That's how many artists start. And then, as you grow and have a wider perspective, you mature and you have a better understanding of the world, and as I said during my TED talk, what you can give back to your community. Things change, not for everyone. Some people continue tagging and doing I would say like traditional graffiti, but I have nothing against them, of course. Like,
no, of course, yeah. I can see you have a very clear vision of the sort of intention behind your own work. Do you feel like that? Do you feel very confident in that, or is that something that you feel like you're always working on and changing?
Yeah, it's a very good question, actually. For many years, I used to I started as well from the point of traditional graffiti. When by that I mean just letters, working on letter pieces, and that was about it. It was all about the letters, the forms, how complicated the piece is, how they interlock with each other, like being, wild style, following that sort of direction. But as the years passed, I started, removing elements from my work, and over the years, over a span of maybe, let's say, 2001 was the first time I ever, used the spray can. So I think this reduction kind of started after 15 years of doing strictly letters. Everything became more abstract. I was in search of more unusual forms that in the end led me to just focusing on the forms themselves. And now, it has become very abstract. If you look at where I started from, what graffiti is and what my work is right now, it's been a long journey, I think. But yeah, there are changes over the years, and of course, as I remember, our professors were saying during the masters, nothing exists in a vacuum. So of course, I have influences. I have different things that happen in my life, or artists that I look up to, and in one way or another, influence my work. And I think, as humans as a species, even the way we inhabit this planet, and we keep creating and producing, and at some point you start existing and you start creating art, and you find yourself in a specific point in time with so many things that have happened before and so many things that are yet unknown, and you're trying to figure out what your part is in this whole timeline. But yeah, confidence builds up, I think, with experience. Yeah. And lessons that you learn, and mistakes, And
Yeah, absolutely. I think one thing as well, I mean, we've briefly touched on this already in our sort of conversations, is sort of this feeling of having a ticking clock, or that you have to be perfect straight away. And like, you mentioned 15 years of working largely with like letters, and then you've gone more abstract. That's a big part of your life, 15 years. That's a long time. How do you feel about sort of, feelings of like, oh, it's too late, or I'm running out of time, or I'm, how do you sort of deal with those questions when they come across?
yeah, that's a very real question as well. I think in every artist's kind of head. But the thing is that over the years, I've also realized that each person, and maybe it sounds like a cliche, but it's true. I mean, I see it all the time. I notice it that different people have different journeys. I think of it, like that. You have different journeys. You are born in a specific family with specific things that you're able to do when you grow up, things where you can study, how much time you can spend on art, for example, how old you are when you discover art, or how old you are when you discover that you're actually good at that, let alone what direction you want to take. So when a comparison in my head is always, I compare myself maybe subconsciously that, we're the same age. It just sounds fair to me, when it comes to younger people that are so talented and are doing amazing, like that I look up to them. I'm like, wow, and they're so young. I mean, I can't compare myself to them. Like, wow, they're doing great. But when it comes to people that we're the same age, and they can be from anywhere in the world, then I think it becomes more personal. And I'm thinking that, yeah, maybe I'm not at their level, but in the position I'm in the choices I've made, the lifestyle that I've had, over the years, I'm pretty happy. I'll be honest with you. I think, of course, I could have done more, but I've done a lot. That's how I feel. It's very often that I'm thinking that even if I stop today, no projects come my way, or for one reason or another, I cannot create, which sounds like really weird to actually say it.
Yeah.
But when I look back, I'll turn 36 this year, and I'm thinking, I've done well. It's okay. I think very often we try to be very, very strict with ourselves. And maybe someone might say, oh, how can you even, say that you should always be aiming higher, always, to improve, and so on and so on. Yes, I'm trying. I'm just saying that, and I don't want to sound like a grandpa, but of course, social media, the demanding pace of, on a daily basis, just seeing how productive other people are, how amazing they are, comparing yourself to them. And it's not just, just, I know we talk about influencers and how everything is so polished and so fake, maybe that, it creates like a fake kind of, it sets the bar too high for ourselves. When it comes to how we look or our lifestyle and so on. But even between artists, let's face it, like there are so many factors that we can use to compare ourselves to other artists. Like whether it's how many shows you have per year, like how big is the gallery or the fair that you exhibit, how productive you are, how, what sort of equipment you're using to document your work, and how great it looks on someone's phone. But how real is that? How real is that?
Well, it's not realistic at all, because we're then becoming, we're moving away from the thing that we actually care about and that we want to be creating. And we're becoming videographers and bloggers and writers, and maybe, some of those things are nice if you've got a newsletter or a blog that you choose to write, but this idea that we all have to sell ourselves in that way and be really good at it, It's quite daunting for a lot of people. Not everybody, social media should be fun and should be a scrapbook, right? It shouldn't be this sort of very polished, but people see it as a portfolio now as well, which is it's confusing, I
Absolutely.
think.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think that you know, when I graduated, it was actually the last year that I blogged. I used to blog for about 5 years. Even when I was in Greece, and I was very active in, you know, painting on walls, or traveling for all sorts of, you know, festivals or projects. And it's there. My blog is still there on Blogspot, you know. And whenever I go back, because I very often go back to just download pictures, repost them, or whatever, I can just see, like, I was posting almost every week.
Yeah.
And the things that I was posting there, I'm 100% sure that I wouldn't post them now on Instagram, for example. It's just not the place for it. Different platforms, it's different ways to use different you know, platforms, yeah, social media, and depends whether you want to use your Instagram, for example, for as a portfolio, or you're using TikTok, or you know, you are more focused on your website, or creating a really strong PDF catalog of works that you email to people, like you mentioned the newsletter, for example. These are questions in terms of how do different artists and creatives manage all this. It's a big question of management.
And also, they're just tools, aren't they? They're just tools. They're more tools for us to use. We don't need to use all of them, but we can. And yeah, I mean, we're quite lucky in a way that we have so many options, but also that can become quite overwhelming. It's a bit like when you go out for dinner and the menu's too big and you sort of get stuck. It's a bit like that. And it's quite a simple analogy, but well, the thing that I'm thinking about, the sort of timeline thing, you know, your work translates to murals, graffiti, ceramics. There's even some carpet work, isn't there? I've seen that you've had some cycling wear as well, where they've used your prints. I mean, how amazing is that, that it stretches over so many different things? Do you think it's important for creatives to try and just see their work in different spaces as much as possible?
Absolutely. Absolutely. This is a big tip. Even, you know, as a reminder to myself as well, that when you want to experiment and you want to actually see your own work with through a different lens, and you don't know what your next step should be in order to, you know, reinvent your own work, you can change the medium. You know, if you change the medium and do exactly the same thing, it won't be the same to begin with. So yeah, the carpets you mentioned, I'm here in Sofia now, where I live, and I was invited by this amazing creative and the Studio Subcultura studio to create this capsule collection. We created those carpets, 3 carpets, big carpets, and ceramics, along with some prints. And it was the first time I actually collaborated with someone very talented, to be honest, to create such a collection. And the designs were just mine. The ceramics were mostly made by Margarita, that is behind the studio. And I drew on them, the ceramics. But the rugs, together, we created the composition with the elements. And I have no idea how to actually create the carpets, but amazing. And yeah, the cycling kits was I was invited by this company, Heavy Pedal, from Phoenix, to actually collaborate and, you know, worked on different designs and what could translate well on this. But going back to your question, it's absolutely great, and I think this is the amazing potential that being a creative in the sphere of visual arts visual arts has, that it can be applied to so many different mediums and so many different objects, products, still image, moving image, you know, you name it, you can do anything. Whether you try to create something on your own, like for example, self-publishing a book or printing your own t-shirts, or when you collaborate. So I think when these two things align and are combined, so visual arts, and maybe I feel like it's so strong because this is what I do. Of course, it can be the same with music, but and I don't know how it happens there. Honestly, I that's not my field. But when it comes to images and you know, creating a visual work, the result of your work being visual, it has so many applications. It's endless. Honestly, it's endless. I mean, I don't know how a musician could create a cycling kit. Maybe this is something, you know, new technology with wearables, and maybe there's something there, but it's everywhere. It's everywhere, from products, from just collectibles, clothing. It could be anything. Yeah.
Lovely. If you could give anybody any advice, sort of who's studying now or working on their creative portfolio, what would it be? Or maybe even like your younger self, what advice would you go back and say?
Well, my younger self, I think the advice of my younger self would be to be a bit more focused, a bit earlier in life, because I have had a lot of fun, you know, during my studies, and during my BA studies, to be honest. I during my BA studies back in Greece, I remember that, you know, I was not so much interested in you know, studying civil engineering. So I would just skip exams, just, you know, do commissions, you know, do freelance work while being a student at university. Like my first commission, I think, was back in 2009, I think. Well, my first commission, you know, like wall in the interior of a shop, of a store in my hometown, and I had plenty of time to just paint, to just explore my surroundings, you know, find nice spots to paint. But it was all for me. It was all for me, and then commissions would start becoming more and more, and you know, I ended up having a really strong portfolio when it came to my commissioned projects and my self-initiated projects, that I could actually be accepted, you know, for a master's, for a postgraduate course. And I'm pretty sure. So this is exactly what I mean when I refer to and I talk about each person's journey and situations and circumstances. Whether I liked it or not, I had to graduate from that first university where I studied. You know, this took me 7 years. 7 years to graduate. I could have just went abroad when I was 18, do a BA on illustration, then an MA. I would have been, you know, I think when I started my MA in Norwich, I was 26. 25, 26. So I could have had an MA and also 2 years of experience, you know, in the industry, right? So 3 or 4 years for my BA and 1, you know, for the postgraduate, and then I would have been the same age, but with much more experience and studies, you know, in the field. But each person has their own story, absolutely. And what I keep telling myself is, try to do the best you can with what you have, where you are in that space and time. So when an opportunity comes your way, try to see what is the best you can do. Be open to learn from it as an experience, as an interaction with people, with some that really likes your work and wants to commission you for a project, if they really trust you and they give you the opportunity, try to do your best. Be honest, be professional, be really careful with how you treat people that trust you. Because this is a step to the next thing. And be open to learning from anything and from anyone, so that you can actually improve yourself. These are just reminders that I have there for myself all the time. And another really important point, is a day job. Do you need to get a day job in order to actually earn a living and do your creative work on the side, as a side thing? Do it for as long as you have choices. You can try to just be a freelance artist, full-time artist, like for that to be your lifestyle. Like you can do it, but it's like an advice. I mean, I'm not telling anyone what to do, but and that's what I've done for many years. I'm not a full-time artist. I do have a 9-to-5, and and I'm a parent for the last 4.5 years, and it's very different. It's that's what I mean by how harsh are you on yourself when you compare yourself to others. Like, is it an equal comparison, the one we have in our heads? There are so many factors that make us who we are and make other people who they are and make their journey what it has been and what it is. So I don't know if what I said makes sense, but
no, it's great. Yeah, no, I think people also, it's about perspective. So we all have this idea that anybody that's successful, or however we measure success as well, because that's a whole other subject, but anyone we see, we think, oh gosh, they're doing lots of work and it looks amazing. We assume that that's all that they do, but most creatives do have another job as well, or what people like to call a side hustle or something, to support ourselves, because a lot of us do have families or other caring responsibilities or need that stability. And as we all know, the creative industries isn't necessarily the most financially stable one out there. So, and there's shame wrapped around that for some reason. There's this weird idea that means that as soon as someone knows that, they think, oh, really? I think it's really real and makes a lot of sense to me, but I think it's an important thing to talk about for sure. Well, thank you so much. I really enjoyed talking to you, and you have to have a listen to this